Hello, everybody. Welcome to office hours. Please just keep yourself on mute. Oop. I'm going to take a few minutes and let everybody come in. And if you can start, just put in the chat where you're coming from if you're able to. It's lovely to see where everybody is. I'm currently in New York. Sibilla is in New York, and Sarah and Megan are in Atlanta. And that's where ArtCloud is based. So we love Atlanta. All right, we'll just take a few more minutes, then we'll get started. People will probably filter in as we go. Raleigh, North Carolina. Hello, Seattle, Washington. Love it. West Coast, Bay Area. That's where I'm from. Okay, so let's get started. So my name's Laura. I am an account executive here at ArtCloud, and welcome to Office Hours. Today we are going to be discussing the artist brand. So this is our last office hours of the year. Should be a really good one. We have our special guest, 𝗲𝗺𝗫 Maiarelli, who is the director of New Collectors in New York, which is a wonderful art gallery, contemporary art gallery. And we have Sarah Lawrence, who is a designer and illustrator based in Atlanta. So we're going to be discussing the artist brand from a couple different viewpoints. Wonderful to have Sarah and Sibilla with us to get those perspectives from a gallery as well as from an actual brand creator. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Just try turning up your volume, Michaela. Also, this will be recorded and we'll send it to you following up in an email. So you'll be able to rewatch it and get all the information afterwards. And before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to stay on mute for the duration of the event. And please put any questions that you have in the chat. After our conversation, we'll be getting to those questions, and Sibilla and Sarah will be able to answer your personal questions. All right. So first, if you're new to ArtCloud, I just want to go over what we are and what we offer. ArtCloud is the only management platform for artists to help them manage business, helps artists create professional looking invoices and other sales and marketing tools such as email campaigns. You can integrate with your email, you can manage your entire back end of your business, create tear sheets, send them to art galleries, and then it will also integrate with a website builder. So you have options to come on ArtCloud for your website, and then you can connect that to a management system with ArtCloud as well. So we have professional looking websites specifically for artists. We also offer this system for galleries as well, but definitely a really amazing system overall. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to email us after, and I can help you with more details and information about that. And we will start with Sibilla. If you can please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. So my name is 𝗵𝗵𝗪 Maiarelli, and I founded New Collectors 2020 online, and then 2021 I opened the physical space on the Lower East Side. And I opened on Henry Street. And if you are sort of familiar with the small gallery scene in New York, Henry Street is kind of a hot spot right now for these small emerging galleries, focusing on emerging contemporary artists. And yeah, my programming involves a lot of painting and photography and ceramics. I'm very into ceramics. That's currently what I have in the gallery right now. Um, and yeah, it's been a whirlwind the past couple years having the space. I went into it with not a lot of experience, but it's really been a learning experience every step of the way. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also learned a lot, and I've gotten to know my community. And I'm always talking to people, trying to get people's perspective and advice, other gallerists in the neighborhood. And yeah, I'm happy to be in New York and exhibiting work. That's really what I wanted to be doing with my career, is helping artists make a career out of their work and give them space to exhibit and build a community.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh, sorry. And Sarah, so sorry.
Hello, hello. My name is Sarah Lawrence, and I am a freelance graphic designer and illustrator here in Atlanta. It's funny because I say graphic designer because that is what my mom understands me to do. But really, I do a lot of different things. I build websites, build brands, work with developers to build applications for specific use cases and all kinds of different things. And so I have been doing this as a solo freelancer for almost 10 years at this point, which is sort of a crazy thing to say. So I really come at this from a couple different angles. Before I was a freelancer, I worked at a music magazine, also in Atlanta, and with kind of a national reach. And a lot of my work there was hiring illustrators and commercial artists to create artwork for our stories, to run alongside pieces and articles. So I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of artist websites and profiles and portfolios and all kinds of different things. And, you know, I have so many opinions just from that alone. But then also being on the other side as someone who has a brand, who, you know, my brand is very important because most of my work comes in through referrals. And so the way that I kind of manage that brand and that perspective is really important to running a business. So I have a lot of different kind of opinions and feelings about this topic in particular. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. And also thank you for letting us know where you're from. I love seeing what people are calling in from today. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And again, if you just joined us, we are going to be looking at the artist brand with Sibilla and Sarah, and what that means and how to approach that. And please just stay muted, make sure that you're on mute. And then we'll be answering questions towards the end. So if you have a question that pops up, just feel free to put it in the chat, and then we'll get to it towards the end of the presentation. So again, thanks all for being here. Just want to start off with the artist brand overall. What is it? When you think of branding, you think of, you know, logos and design, but there's a lot more to it that we're going to be looking at today. So Sibilla, I'll start with you. What does the artist brand mean overall?
Yeah, I think that an artist brand is how you're presenting yourself. A lot of times when people are researching artists or finding artists, coming across artists, a lot of that is happening online now. So your presence online really does matter. Making sure you have an updated website, making sure you're posting on social media. All of these things are important. And then also, when you are talking to people and meeting people in person, that first impression that you're making on them is also really important. And not to like put a lot of pressure on, you know, on meeting people. Not that you have to have a pitch ready. In fact, I think it's better to make sure that when you are trying to enter a community, an artist community, whether that's in your town or whether you're trying to interact with people online and other places, you know, not to be too pitch heavy. So try to focus on the community that you're joining and what other people are doing. And then slowly it'll happen more organically that the conversation turns around and people start getting interested in you. So I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind.
So it's more about how you show up and doing that kind of authentically, but also with intention, it sounds like, both online and
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, these communities are smaller than we think, especially with the internet. And so, you know, if you are the kind of person who is just always trying to, I don't know, like that pitch mentality, if you're like always just showing up to things and being like, look at me, and then leaving, you know, people will remember that. They will remember you. It's a lot about the impression that you make when you are joining these communities, whether they're in person or online.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I think that as someone who, you know, I sit in my gallery every day. I'm the one who's here when people are coming in, and a lot of times artists will come in and it's very clear to me when an artist is just, okay, they're coming into my gallery and then they're leaving and they're going to the next one and they're saying, hi, I'm an artist, can you look at my work, I want to have a show with you. You know, it's really, really obvious when, especially when someone hasn't done their research on what I'm doing, you know. And when I'm working with, like, anytime you're working with someone, you want to know that it's like a mutually beneficial thing, right? So you have to make sure that the galleries that you're reaching out to or clients that you're reaching out to are people who would actually be a good fit in the first place. Because, you know, I have a very specific idea of the type of work that I want to show and the people who I work with. And so I think that does come through when you look at, you know, my presence online, the gallery website, past shows that I've done. And so if someone has done their research, they know what I'm looking for, and then they come to me, and it's more like we'll click if it's a good fit.
And then in what way, say an artist has done their research and then they come to you, like, what are the next steps? How does that conversation flow? What do you expect of the artist at that point? Like, how do they present themselves in the right way or in an impressive way? Like, how can they show up?
There are a lot of things, yeah, that I can say here because so I think we often have this idea of the artist as this kind of like aloof person who's just so creative, and they're just like this genius that is like you know, creating in a mess, and but they're brilliant, and like I don't know, or they're really difficult to work with. That is absolutely not the case with the artists that I work with. I try to work with people who are very organized. Not to say they can't be messy in their studio, but they're organized, right? So if I email them and say, hey, I have a client asking about your available work, they immediately send me a PDF of available work. And that's actually something that I really, really highly recommend, whether it's, you know, if you're trying to get like a job, like a commission, and Sarah might be able to speak to this more, but you know, whether that's like having a portfolio ready that looks professional, or having a PDF, maybe it's even like a Dropbox, right? And all of the files are named with like the title, year, medium, dimensions, you know, all of that kind of, all those little details make my life as a gallerist so much easier. But then it's also, you have to keep in mind that even if you are a good fit with someone, like if I really click with someone, I might not have an opening for a show until next year, you know. So a lot of times galleries will plan their programming out for months ahead of time. And so it really does take a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of time to build that connection. So I might meet someone and really click with them, and then it's not until next year that I actually commit to doing a show with them. So I think that's something to keep in mind also. It's you have to constantly be expanding your network and really nurturing those connections. And I think this is also kind of where ArtCloud comes in, where you have that software and that tool to maintain connections. You have the CRM, right? So the sending out emails and making sure that people, you know, get reminders of who you are and what work you're making. Because as a curator or gallerist, you know, we have so many people that we're trying to keep on our radar. So if you as the artist make that easy for us, it really does make a difference. Like it might make the difference between like being included in a group show or not being included in a group show, things like that.
Definitely.
I do want
And
to, oh, sorry.
I was just going to mention, Megan did put in the chat too that ArtCloud offers in the software a really quick, easy, professional looking method to create tear sheets, and you can email that from the platform. It's really efficient and helpful to just quickly get your artwork out to your contacts. Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, sorry, I just Sibilla, I got really excited when you were talking about that, just because that is something that comes up in fine art. It comes up in commercial art. When I was hiring people before, I would like find a really cool artist on Instagram and be like, oh, their style is perfect for this piece that we have coming up, and like I want to hire them. And then I would go to their Instagram and there would be like no information. You know, I'd go to their website and there would be no contact information. I would accept maybe a form, and then I would fill out the form and never hear back. And you know, it's just that thing of like, it happened enough times where I was like, don't you want me to hire you? Don't you want me to give you money for things? You know, like the easier you make it on people, you just make, I don't know, you just make that easier on them to hire you, to commission you, to share your information with other people. Maybe like, you know, you don't have a good opening right now, but there's this gallery a few blocks away that you're like, oh, this would be perfect for you. And like, I'm going to put y'all in touch. And, you know, you want to be ready for them to be interested and for them to reach out. So anybody could be reaching out to you at any moment for anything. And you just want to be ready and make that easy on them.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into having, you know, a strong brand or presence online. Like, what platforms are important? How often should you update them? What kind of content should be on there? What shouldn't be on there? Yeah, Sibilla, do you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot to say about social media, I guess. So I noticed that the last time I think like once a year I'll put out an open call for a group exhibition, and that's been super fun. Last open call got like over 320 submissions. It was super fun to look through all of that. And I found myself, you know, I would look at the submission, and if I wanted to see more, I would go to the Instagram. I would search for their Instagram before going to their website. Because more often than not, especially with younger artists who are more like Instagram savvy, they're going to be posting more regularly there. So I'm going to see most recent work on Instagram as opposed to the website, because sometimes the website is a bit more of a pain to sort of update, and people don't do it as consistently. Which is also frustrating. I think it's really important to have both and have them linked to each other. And then more specifically, like best practices for Instagram. I think that, okay, I also just want to preface this with saying that as an artist who is trying to promote their own work, you have to learn how to be good at all of these little things, right? You have to be good at writing your statement and writing your CV. You have to be good at photographing your work or taking videos of your work. And you have to be good at posting and, you know, doing email campaigns. And you're doing so much as an artist. And again, any way you can make your life easier doing that, whether it's working like, you know, with ArtCloud or having your own sort of system for organizing and managing that, it's really important to do that. So I understand this is, you know, easier said than done, but good lighting on your pictures so that you get accurate colors, being able to show the scale of your work, because sometimes social media will really like you, or any images you're like, you have no idea how big this painting is, right? So maybe having some context for scale. And then types of posts. I think that behind the scenes process pictures and videos are always good to sort of give context to what you're doing. You know, some people only like to post their work and sort of use Instagram as a portfolio of sorts. But I think it's also okay to show a little bit of your personality, maybe show some of your inspiration, as long as it's not too close to your work where it's like, wait, is this their work or is it someone else's work? You know, you should make that clear. And then also, you know, making sure that you have all of the information about your work in your captions. So that if someone does like something, right, if you want to post something that you have available and you would be open to selling it, make sure you have the title, dimensions, year, materials, all of that information in the caption. I think that is super helpful. That's kind of what I do with the gallery when I'm posting an artist's work, like you know, from the show. I'll make sure I have all of that information because I know a lot of collectors are on Instagram and they're looking at that. And then one more thing about Instagram, and even just like on the website, if you have a body of work that you are trying to get shown in a gallery, or maybe you have something lined up with a gallery, or you have a tentative show, don't put that work on social media. When you are getting ready for a show or any sort of presentation of your work, you want to make sure that it is fresh and new and exciting when it comes out. So I know that when I'm curating something, I'll tell the artist, okay, we've selected these paintings for the show, like don't post those, you know, that'll come out when we have the press release and the preview and when the show gets photographed and we share those images. So that's just like my last little tip.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Definitely. Sarah, what do you think? Best practices media?
Yeah, no, what you're saying, that reminds me of when musicians are playing like a Bonnaroo or a Coachella or something. They often have like legal requirements where they can't play within like 100 miles of that area for like 6 months because they want to like keep that focus on that location. And so that's really cool. I've never heard that before. That's a really cool kind of connection there. Definitely good photography and good context is really important. I also feel like Instagram is often my recommendation too. Like if you can only update one, I would definitely update it on Instagram. It also works too because and Sibilla, I don't know if this is kind of how you or other people use it, but like, you know, you have the ability to save things. If you see something pop up in your feed and you're like, that's a really cool ceramicist that I haven't seen before, like I'm gonna add that to a folder of cool ceramics work that I like and then go back to it later. And you have that ability a lot more easily than you would on a website. But then, you know, kind of conversely, some people do like visiting websites. They, you know, maybe they prefer to browse on a desktop computer where the images are bigger and they can read more text a little more easily. You know, you can definitely embed that Instagram feed definitely on Squarespace websites, some WordPress websites, depending on the correct plugin, but you can often set it up so that you do that work once and it ends up in both places. I would also say that Instagram gives you the ability, or Instagram tends to be a little bit more forgiving in the photography style, and that like you can have your main grid of your finished pieces that you really want to serve as your portfolio. You know, I've been told before that your portfolio is only as strong as your weakest piece. So maybe you're only showing like the best stuff on your main Instagram grid, but stories would be a really good place for process work, personal stuff, inspiration. You can organize your highlights so that like people just are able to click through your like inspiration or just like things about you in the space. And it's easier to kind of organize that content that way. And it's a little bit easier just to like plug and play and kind of, you know, you're waiting in an office somewhere and you're just like updating your captions and stuff like that and responding to people. So it's a lot handier and on the go. You know, I often, when I'm working on any sort of brand for any sort of organization, I often recommend, because they're asking, should we have a Twitter and a LinkedIn and a TikTok and a Tumblr and a live journal and and I'm just saying, like, really, you should only have as many platforms as you can consistently update. Sure, make all of those, but if you post on Twitter once and then you don't do it for 3 years, people are going to think you're not active anymore. So, if you are the kind of person that wants to post on a bunch of platforms and all at once, you can do that. But if you just think like, I just want to keep up with 1 or 2 things, Instagram and website are usually the ways to go.
For sure. And then
also,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing about Instagram is that it's also so interactive. You can comment on other artists' work, on galleries' posts, on, you can ask questions and people will respond. Whereas with a website, the only way to contact the person who's making the website is, if they have a contact form or email. I prefer just having the email available as opposed to the contact form. But, it's not as immediate as with social media.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to ask that same thing, like the importance of keeping in touch with people through social media and the consistency of that. Like, is that a good avenue for creating community and building that, on Instagram as well?
I think so. There are a lot of artists that I interact with. My personal account is also public, so sometimes people will find me and we sort of just like are friendly on Instagram because maybe they'll like respond to my story about something totally unrelated from art, right? Like I've just recently picked up running and maybe they'll comment and be like, oh, you should try this electrolyte, blah, 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 whatever. And I think that's just a really nice way to interact with people also, because it shows that you're not, again, going back to like building community, engaging with a community. You're not just interested in like, give me a show, like I want a show, like saw my work, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's more, a more holistic approach.
And shows that you like actually care and like,
yeah,
it's kind of a backwards way of doing research. You're like getting to know the person and feeling that out. Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
And that can be tricky. I mean, like that in my at least to me, that seems relatively new in this industry, and that can be kind of a tricky thing where you maybe don't feel comfortable reaching out to people on Instagram or commenting on their things, but it's kind of like a muscle to use, just like anything else. Just getting used to checking in with people, seeing how they're doing, seeing what they're posting and what's going on with them is just something that you can kind of get into a rhythm of and learn to do over time.
Yeah, and I will also say that I think that is always better when you've already met the person or already had some sort of introduction to the person, right? Because like someone who I've never met before, who I've never seen their Instagram, if they're reaching out to me, then it's like, do I know them? Like it can be a little tricky then, right? But I can always click on their profile and see, oh, okay, they're an artist. They follow the gallery. They follow these other artists that I'm working with. So you're able to make those connections a bit easier. And then one more thing about interacting with people, and especially interacting with galleries on Instagram, that is a big don't for me, is don't tag galleries or people who you're trying to get their attention. Don't tag them in your post, especially if it has nothing to do with them. It can be a little, I mean it's just a little bit annoying. It's also like if someone sees that I'm tagged as a gallery, then they might think I'm like affiliated with this person when I'm not. And it's, galleries are all about like their curation and their image,
because it shows up in that thing. It shows up in that other like category, right? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend doing that to try to get people's attention.
I will say one funny flip side of the like random outreach is because my work and my personal it's just the same Instagram. I just use one from everything because it's hard to separate me from my work at this point. And I started working with somebody recently that I followed. I just like followed them because they're just like I think an AI developer in Atlanta, and I was like, oh, I want to see what he's doing and check in with his work. And then I saw a story and just like forgot that I didn't know this person and responded. He was like, oh, it was like a running thing, and I was like, oh, you should check out these electrolytes. And because I thought I was responding to a friend, and he responded, and now we just like correspond, and now we're like buds, and it was just I did it completely on accident because I thought I knew him, and then just forgot. I don't know. So there's some good kind of funny accidents that can also happen in an interactive space like that.
Yeah, but essentially it's important to use Instagram as a tool, but use it authentically as well. Like, don't tag galleries that you don't have affiliation with, but you can, you know, comment on their post or follow them and try and build community that way. Any insights or opinions on hashtags for people who might just be starting out with Instagram, or you know, best practices around hashtags and reels and like all those little components of Instagram? Any insights into those?
Sarah, do you have? I will say I'm not huge on the hashtags, and I don't know what best practices are. I think you're like not supposed to have more than 3, and I think actually that there are some like AI tools that you can use to sort of give you ideas for what hashtags to use. A lot of times AI has a better, like, can sort of understand that data and synthesize it a lot better than if you were just to do your own research.
Yeah.
And also I think a lot, I mean, the original, if I remember this correctly, the original concept of a hashtag was like tagging a conversation or tagging your post so that it would join a conversation, you know, like today we are tweeting about the Oscars or something. And so with that in mind, if you are going to use hashtags in an Instagram post, I would probably, instead of like hashtag paint, hashtag art, hashtag gallery, I'm doing a little hashtag sign for some reason, you know, think of things that are specific to your industry, maybe like a New York Fashion Week, or I don't know, like something a little bit more specific so that it shows up in the right places. Because you're trying to get the algorithm to put you in a particular place, but you're also trying to join a larger conversation and have that post in front of people who may be scrolling through that specific hashtag. You know, like I'm probably not going to click on hashtag art and just scroll. But I might see what people are doing for, like, Atlanta Design Week is happening right now. So I might see what is happening kind of in that thought process or that space. So there is like a level of, if you want to go that route, there is a level of research, like kind of seeing what organizations are using and joining their conversations.
Yeah, definitely. Instagram is super inundated and it's changing all the time. So it's kind of hard to keep up with the trends and the algorithm and all of that. But yeah, for hashtags, I think stay as specific as possible. If you do just hashtag art, obviously you're going to be thrown in with like billions of people around the world who are putting up hashtag art. But if you're specific to, you know, first Tuesdays in Raleigh or whatever, like something specific, an event or something, you know, local to you, you'll probably have more success being found that way. Let's switch gears to the website. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you think are important components to have on your website. What should you do and what should you not do when designing a website?
I can maybe speak more to the format and content of the website. And I think Sarah probably has more experience with actually designing it. I actually sort of, my parents are graphic designers, so I sort of leave that to them. But I look at a lot of websites for artists. So I am always going to look for recent works. And then also I like when work is either categorized by series or by year. Especially I do like looking when it's by year, just so you can kind of see like the evolution of the work. I think that's always really fun. And then of course having that content, the contact information, So email, Instagram handle, directly there so that people can reach out to you. That's also super important. So I would say those are like the main things that I'm looking for. Also, I guess I also forgot, CV and artist statement are also great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Design wise, Sarah, do you have anything to add? Like font, color, do's and don'ts?
Yeah, man, pick a good font, pick one that people can read. I mean, websites are more like beautiful and unique than Instagram because you can really make it look like anything. Like you can pick whatever colors you want, you can pick whatever fonts you want, you can, make the image do a thing when you scroll. It's really easy to get carried away with that. So, if web design is maybe not something that you have a lot of training or experience in, you can keep it simple. Just pick something that is legible to all eyes. And then, just focus on the content, because this is something that I run into a lot with design work and stuff that I see is like, your website is ultimately pointless if I can't read it, if I can't get the information I need fairly quickly. From a content perspective, think about it as like answering frequently asked questions. Like if you are a multimedia artist and you often have a really specific set of specs for installing your workplaces, and you often have to answer the same question over and over, make sure that is on your website, easy to find. One thing that I see a lot is sometimes on websites, I see this a lot in emails where people will save a very cool text graphic as an image and then put it into an email, because email does not come with a wide variety of font choices. You're like, I want to use this really cool font as my brand font, I'm going to use it on an email. The problem with doing that is it reduces accessibility. So when you are using a screen reader or translation services, those services cannot read an image. It just sees image and it just moves on. So, if you are using something that is going to be an image, make sure that information is also represented somewhere else as text, so that it is the most accessible. Maybe somebody in another country is trying to access your website and they can't translate it because it's all images. So sometimes to do that, you have to give up some design control. Maybe you can't use your cool brand font on an email because it's going to be an image. But we do that in the name of accessibility, so it's easy to process and easy to make sense of. There are also, I know on Squarespace and WordPress, there are tools you can use, like where you can embed on your website that have some native screen reading and translation and just sort of like accessibility things. Like maybe somebody wants to increase the contrast or increase the font size or something to make their browsing experience easy. That's something I tend to encourage where possible. Your website could be black text on a white screen, but if it's got all the information that a gallery owner or someone who's going to hire you needs, and that's fine. You want to start with that structure and that usability first, and then kind of add stuff from there. Unless your whole thing is colorful and bright and super wacky, then make sure that your website's going to reflect that. But really the most important thing is just to make sure all those questions are answered in one place.
Definitely. So important components to have: legibility, make sure you have the information that clearly stated, and Sibilla, you were talking about CVs and bios and artist statements. Let's start with artist statements. Like, what is a good approach for an artist to create an artist statement these days? I know it kind of changes, but today, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so I actually really recommend this book called How to Write About Contemporary Art, and I think we're gonna send you all a link as in the follow-up to that book. I really cannot stand reading an artist statement where by the end of it, I'm like, what did I just read? My mind just kind of like zones out. Like if there is too much fluffy art talk, I can't. I mean, nobody can really read that. And I know that sometimes when you read other people's artist statements, you're like, oh, I guess like, does everybody do this?
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of people do it, and it's not a good thing. I do not
Why
recommend
do
it.
people do it? Why do they do it? I don't
Um,
know.
I have a
well,
question
one,
also.
oh yeah, well, just really quickly, one, people do it because writing about art is hard.
Mhm.
Writing about your own art is even harder.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that having some sort of manual where you can, where they give you tips, what to do, what not to do, use these types of verbs, don't use these types of verbs, or don't use these, uh, you know, nonsensical phrases.
Mhm.
It's okay to look for help when writing something. Give it to 10 people who don't know about art and say, this is my work and this is my artist statement. Does it make sense? I think it really, like, any resource you have to write a better artist statement or write about your work in a more eloquent way, a more concise way. It doesn't have to be, artist statement doesn't have to be long as I can um, get to know maybe a little bit about your process. What does your work look like? What's the type of research that you're doing when you're making your work? The details that are the most interesting are the most pertinent, and you don't need anything else. And it doesn't have to be like
Mhm.
crazy art speak.
Right. So it should essentially reflect the work, and then maybe pull a little bit more out of it that you wouldn't get just from seeing it. But it,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Can I ask you a question? What do you
Yes.
think about using ChatGPT?
Okay. So I use ChatGPT all the time. Wait, did I say that?
Chat
Now
GPT. Yeah.
I'm like dyslexic. So I use it all the time as to give me an outline, right? Like I am not a very confident writer, so when I am standing in front of the screen and I say, "Oh my gosh, I have to write a cover letter, or I have to write like a letter of recommendation," right? Like artists will ask me to do that every once in a while, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, where do I even start?" ChatGPT is a really great resource to get an outline for what that should look like, how long it should be, maybe the type of language that you should use, like how formal. So I really do recommend using it, but it should be your outline. It should be your very first draft. I do not think that ChatGPT is good at understanding art and writing about art at
Mhm.
all. So at least not yet. Like who knows where the technology is going to go. But right now, where it stands, yeah, do not rely only on that.
Yeah. It kind of misses the human element, which is super important when you're talking about art.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, it can definitely help with a lot. What about your bio and your CV? Are
Yeah.
those that you look for, and what are the best ways to structure that?
Yeah. So your CV is going to have, education, professional experience, and exhibition history. So, for example, the artist that I have right now, he works full time as a studio manager at 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 Pottery. So he has a lot of experience teaching classes, working with kilns, managing a ceramic studio.
Mhm.
That's really good information to have on his resume, even though his resume is in the context of like he's an exhibiting artist, right? He's represented by a gallery and he has shows. And so including that is really important. But of course, like if this is your artist CV, don't add that you bartend,
Yeah.
on the side or whatever, like whatever it is that it doesn't have anything to do with art, like that, you really don't need to include that. And then having exhibition history. So group shows that you've been in, title of the group show, gallery, where the gallery was, and the year. and then solo exhibitions. And if you have a really long list of group shows and solo exhibitions, narrow it down to the ones that are most impressive. You know, like if you showed in like a tiny gallery in the middle of nowhere, and then you also showed in a bigger city, maybe choose the one that's in a bigger city, because chances are more people are going to be familiar with that gallery. And so, you know, being selective about what you're including. But if you don't have a lot of exhibition history, put whatever you do have. Like it's still important. And then your bio is going to be a summary of your CV. So education, maybe mention a couple of the most impressive exhibitions, residencies, awards, things like that. And it should be short. It should be, you know, if I'm just trying to get an idea of like, okay, this artist is a recent grad, or maybe they've been exhibiting for a while, or maybe they have been in a lot of publications. Like, it's really just like the most important thing about your work in your bio. And then your artist statement, that's really, yeah, more about the artwork and less about experience. And okay, I just saw that I said I saw art fair in that some in the comments. Art fairs absolutely should be in your CV as well. That's very impressive. If you're, you know, in an art fair, people definitely want to know that.
And then for like emails and connecting with your community and like sharing shows that you're in, how often should you do that? Like send a marketing campaign about your process? Should you share just like notes from the studio or updates on what you're working on, or should it just be limited to like, I'm in the show, please come through? Or, you know, how often should you be sharing information, and what kind of information should you share?
Specifically via email?
Yeah, for like marketing campaigns.
Yeah, I think that emails, you know, when you're sending out like an email campaign, it's better to sort of limit how often you're sending something out. A lot of times, you know, people will see that in their folder, and if they see a lot of them, it's not going to feel as special or interesting. Like if I see I'm getting an email every week from an artist, I'm going to be like, okay, this is a bit too much. Whereas if it's an artist who only reaches out when they have something really interesting to share, then I'm always going to click on that, because I'm like, okay, I want to know the update. Like, I haven't heard from them in a few months. Like, okay, what's going on with them? And I do think that is different from sending personal emails, though. I think personal emails you should send way more often. But specifically email campaigns, yeah, definitely limit how much you're sending. And also, you know, I think the email should have a little bit of information, and then should maybe link to another page that has more information, whether it's the exhibition page on the gallery website, or it's your own personal website where you're sharing some images, or whether it's your Instagram, maybe you just posted a video of your process on Instagram, you want to link to that. So I think that's good. But when people are going through their emails, I think it's better to just like have things be very concise. And you know, the way that you're formatting the email should be like, okay, the header, most important thing. Images, always good to include images. And then the text, the main body text should be short.
And if it's not a quality image, it's like not even worth putting in.
Yeah, you want to have good images. I mean, all the time, email, website, Instagram, you want to make sure those images are good.
Yes, indeed.
And
any
that
last?
also,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
that also kind of goes to kind of what we were saying about how many platforms to be on. Like if you don't have the capacity to send a weekly email, do not send a weekly email. Send a quarterly email. You know, when, you know, I send a monthly newsletter and I can barely keep up with that. So, you know, maybe like a quarterly thing that's just kind of maybe pieces, what you've been working on, cool things, you know, whatever cadence feels right for you is going to pay off a lot more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it goes back to that whole notion of just being real and with yourself and with your audience, like what are your chosen platforms? And, you know, if they're your chosen platforms, how often are you posting? Be consistent with whatever you choose to put out there. So I think we'll just get to some of these questions in the chat. Mary is asking specifically about working with galleries. How long do you stay with a gallery that is underperforming? So I guess, you know, how do you decide when to move on from galleries, and what would that conversation look like?
Yeah, it's tricky because you know, a gallery is a business. So when you're saying underperforming, I'm assuming maybe they're not selling your work as much as you think they should be, or maybe they're not promoting your work enough. That's really tricky. I think that the right gallery needs to it's not like, oh, this gallery is small and showing emerging art and I'm an emerging artist. It's like, no, who is running the gallery, and are we a good fit? Do we have the good, like the same long-term goals? So you know, for me, where I'm at right now, I'm still building up my collector list. I'm still trying to get my name out there. I haven't gone to fairs yet, so I'm at the very early stages of being a gallerist. I'm not going to start working with an artist that is like super hot, because I cannot keep up with that demand. I cannot, you know, I'm not taking them to fairs. I don't have the collectors for, like, they're not going to want to work with me, and I'm not necessarily going to want to work with them. So you have to find a gallery that has similar goals to you. So if you are in the point in your career where you're like, you know, I really think my work should be going to fairs, or I really want representation, you really like it really is like finding a romantic relationship. Go on lots of dates, date a lot of people, and then you'll find out like who's the right fit for you. You'll know what you want, you'll know what you don't want. And it really does take time. You have to build those relationships. It's not an easy thing. It's really not. But
Sometimes
yeah,
multiple people at the same time, like work with another gallery and see how
yeah,
that goes. But, you know, depending on your
totally.
contract.
Yeah, definitely make sure that you know, if you're working with a gallery in one city, don't start working with another gallery in the same city behind their back. I definitely think that it's very important to have open, honest conversation. So if you say, hey, you know, I feel like you're not promoting my work very often, is there something that I could be doing differently, or would like, can I start talking to other galleries? I'm thinking about reaching out to this gallery in this other place. They've shown some interest in my work. You know, galleries usually, it's hard because sometimes there are people who are extremely stressed about money when they're running their gallery, and that is not sometimes they will like take it out on other people. I've seen like crazy stuff like that happen. If, as long as you're talking to someone who is understanding and has your best interest in mind, I think that you can find a solution, whether that is saying, okay, like this isn't working for us, I'm going to go find another gallery, or it's, I'm going to, you know, I want to also work with another. Just talk to them, have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's important to have a good relationship with your gallerist, like you're saying, like dating for sure. Another question about, you know, if you're going to have an art show, you were mentioning to not post the pieces that are going to be in that show to keep it fresh. But what if the pieces that are going to be in the show are older and you've posted them maybe a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it's fine. Maybe just wait until the show's announced to post those works again. Maybe delete them and then post them again, or archive them, or you know, I think that's fine. It's not like the worst thing in the world. I think I'm talking more specifically like if you are making, if you are like posting recent work and then that work is going into a show, that's more specifically what I'm talking about. But if it's older work, I think it's fine. Especially, you know, like people are going to learn about you through the show, and so they're not necessarily going to scroll back and be like, oh, this you posted this like a long time ago, or like it's old work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Sarah, for Instagram, should you post videos of your process, maybe like before you're even done with the work, or if you finished a work and you want to like release it somehow over email or on your social media? Is it good to have like little teaser videos or just process videos that you post on social?
That is a really good question. As somebody who hires in that space, I would like to see it, but the idea of me posting unfinished work makes me feel stressed. So I think if it's something that is within your wheelhouse to create and post, I think it can't hurt. But if you're not comfortable kind of showing that behind the scenes, then you shouldn't feel like you have to. I also see a comment that Megan shared from email in the chat where it says, "Is an artist expected to have a logo?" I would say a logo can literally be, your name in a cool typeface, and so not really have an official logo for something that you should feel stressed about. Like you may not need to go through a really complicated branding process if it's just like a way that you write your name, or a way that, a cool typeface for your name that you just use consistently. I think that's fine.
And then what about business cards? That was like such a thing not that long ago. Is that still valid? Do we care? What are your guys' opinions on business cards, sharing business cards for artists?
These days people are doing the like QR code thing on your phone business card. I don't know if they're doing that in New York or in other cities. But it's like there's a lot of apps for it. There's tons and tons of apps that do this now, but it's basically just like a QR code, and you can scan it and you can pull up like a website, or like a little, almost like a link tree page where it's like, here's a link to my Instagram, here's a link to my website, here's my contact info, here's my Calendly if you want to book a meeting with me. I'm starting to see that a lot more, partially because, it can be a hassle to design and print business cards. Maybe your information changes and then the business cards are out of date. It's a little bit more quick to keep up with, and it's a little bit more multimedia interactive friendly. I'm seeing that a lot more.
Yeah, Sibilla, what do you think?
So I love business cards. I always have my cards on me. I think it's really helpful for the gallery because I have a physical location. So when I meet someone and I say, oh, I am in the Lower East Side, you should come visit me. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, what's it called? And I just like pull out my business card. It's the name of the gallery, it's the address, they have my contact information if they need to contact. I love it. And I will say, so I'm sitting at my desk. I always have like a little stack. I keep a stack of business cards that I've gotten recently, just sort of like in my desk. And I personally love to have them as little reminders. So this is someone who has come to the gallery a couple times. Like I can just kind of go through it like this is an advisor, and it's a physical reminder. Whereas if it's just on your phone, maybe I'm trying to think like if I don't have business cards, or if someone else doesn't have business cards, but I want to keep up with them, I'll ask to follow them on Instagram. But the thing is that then they're one of like 1,000+ followers on Instagram that I have, and so it's a little harder to remember. So I got these two at the Columbia MFA thesis. So I'm a fan.
That makes me so happy to hear. Honestly, I think tangible things are cool. Phones are noisy. Like I'm in the middle of scanning your QR code and like maybe my battery's dying, or someone's texting me, or maybe I don't want to save your phone number right now. So there are a lot of downsides of doing that way. And so that makes me very happy that you like these cards.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like art is physical, a tangible object. And so is business card, the little mini manifesto of that. So very cool. Okay, well, I think we're at about time. So thank you all. If you have any questions that have come up that we didn't get to answer, please feel free to email us and we'll try and get those answers to you in the follow-up email. Again, we're going to send this meeting as a recording in an email with some resources that Sibilla has shared with us to further your knowledge on the artist brand. Lastly, just again, I'll go over what we offer here at ArtCloud. We have the management system that will create, branded tear sheets for you that you can email from the system to galleries and track your contacts with the galleries. So it's super efficient. It makes your life a lot easier. We also have websites with templates specific for artists so that you can build a website with a lot of the components that we talked about today built into the templates. So really easy to create a professional looking artist website with ArtCloud, and then those two integrate and you can try it for free. We have an inventory only system where you can upload all of your artwork and organize it in a really professional looking way for free, and then explore our other features. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at ArtCloud and I'll help you out. We also have all of our past office hours on our website, so you can check that out. I'll send this along with the recording, so you'll have the link available. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a really great chat, so thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Sibilla, and we'll see you all later. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.